Hi everybody, this is Karak with ACG and welcome to another Walking the Walk. Today we're going to do Watchdogs for the PS4, the PC, and the Xbox One. Now, this isn't console war bullshit. That's for kiddie school. This isn't going to be about who can do the most flummuxicals. This is actually about the look and feel of the game and if the technical and artistic elements of the game equal the advertised product. Because in the end, we already have analysis websites and different YouTubers out there who are spreading the FUD when it comes to technology and making sure that everybody thinks that the number one thing is resolution or some kind of strange anti-aliasing. Those do help, but it's really the artistic vision and the ability of the developers to get that out in a game. So in 2009, this was announced, Watchdogs, and almost instantly everybody started freaking out, not necessarily about the gameplay, but once again about the graphics. Its overuse of bokeh, depth of field, and all kinds of lighting sources really meant that many people looked at it and thought, can this actually be done on the new consoles and on the PC? Now, on the PC, I think everybody understands that at some point it would be able to be done because you can always throw more horsepower at it. When it comes down to it, Ubisoft did not know what the consoles were offering at that time. They had a brief and somewhat technical display of what they possibly could do, but in the end, I think pretty much everybody was let down. However, when it comes down to it, they aimed for a certain target. Now, the first place I chose is what I really like is this mixture of urban and rural. You have this park next to the water, next to the major part of the city, and I thought, you know what, this is a great place to start this video. One of the first things I think we notice, especially when we look out into this vast area, is the kid with the soccer ball out here farther out. Now, we already know that Ubisoft does fairly well with crowds, but one of the things I noticed about the kid with the soccer ball and the leather ball in Assassin's Creed Syndicate is that the person doesn't end up recycling back to the exact same area. Additionally, they'll face different directions when doing these animations. It's little things like that that the developers took into context and sort of made sure that they occurred within the game, and that really does help. Now, I'm not 100% sure if other people are into modding here, but one of the games that you can mod out there right now is called Arma, and one of the things you can do in Arma is you can open up the editor, you can drop an entity like a child with a ball, but most of the time it's somebody with a gun, and you can choose a radius that they will appear in randomly. Now, what's cool about that is you don't have a character appearing every time you load the level at the exact same spot. You have them appearing within whatever size or sizable area that you've chosen as your radius, 200 feet, 400 feet, 800 feet, and you get that randomization pattern, so no two times feel exactly alike. Now, this game doesn't always do that. That kid will be there for the most part all the time, except for, of course, different times of day. But when it comes down to it, still, that reset to a radius instead of reset to the exact point does wonders when it comes to making you feel like the game is flexible and somewhat alive. It's something that I think LA Noire was actually missing, and this is going to be a good follow-up to LA Noire. Of course, ignoring the fact that there was a very large year difference between, I think, 3 or 4 years between the two. Additionally, you take into development time. It makes sense, of course, that LA Noire wouldn't be able to do as many things, but you really do get to see a lot more interactivity. Ubisoft is known for that. Now, one of the cool things, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but Ubisoft actually sent out people into Chicago, into the nice areas, the somewhat nice areas, middle class, lower class, and into some pretty scary areas on field trips. And during those field trips, what they did is they filmed. They filmed everything, people, sounds, the overall activity, what it looked like, and that allowed them to go ahead and build a more realistic world. Additionally, one of the really cool things about what they did is they did not go with chaperones. They didn't go with somebody to tell them exactly where to go and what to look at. They went and looked at everything. Now, a city has too much in its budget when they're putting 105-inch TV screens up on the wall to show a Lamborghini, but that's beside the point. Let's see if we can listen to this lady on the phone for a second.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
No. Hey, that guy! He took my wallet!
Oh, crime.
She told her boss. Pardon? Uh-huh. Yeah. Ooh, my.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted you guys to hear is, of course, the positive affirmations that are going on in that telephone call. One of the things, you can see some studies on this as well, is that whenever anybody's faking a conversation, especially on a telephone call, it'll almost always be generally skewed towards positive. Now, there's different ideas of why that may be, including the fact that if it's a negative conversation that they're pretending to do, they may assume that people listening in will expect in some way some kind of argument back and forth. And for many people, that's just too hard to imagine. imagine arguing a point across two different ways. Again, also positive affirmations can be truncated, but if you listen, she just through the entire phone calls, yes, yes, yes. And sadly enough, they did go and they did record a lot of audio in Chicago to get accents right and stuff like that. But I find that one particular area, or just that kind of delivery, actually fairly stunted. Now, one of the things I have to say is awesome is, and you're going to notice this in Watchdogs in particular, and I mentioned it in Syndicate, so I want to make sure people are aware. Not only are the characters walking, but they're engaged in various different activities while they're walking and different gates. Now, we discussed this in the Syndicate episode where there were some issues with the recycling of animation, especially what I termed as the trudge animation. I don't know what type of animation you want to call that, but where various characters, especially in the urban areas, trudged around, obviously tired from work. Here's a trudger here on the right. Actually, that's sort of a mix between drunk and trudge, a drudge. When it comes down to it, one of the things I noticed in Syndicate is an extraordinary number of different animations that these characters do. There's a character picking up what looks like a quarter on the ground, character there smoking. All of these can be engaged in while they're walking, and I think that's cool. Now, looking at these shops, there's a lot of trivia about Watchdogs, and I think the game really ended up paying a penalty for the fake bullshot trailer that they released. But some of the cool stuff, like having more people with coffees near the coffee shops, are just little small trinkets, little small things that attract the eye to the artistic vision that the developers wanted to put out. Sadly enough, the developers' desire to put out some place that you and I would want to go and visit was sort of blasted because of the fact of so many people expecting the graphics to look a certain way. So when this game came out, a lot of people had an issue with it. Now, I'm not saying that any of these actually affect the gameplay. I'm simply talking about that lived-in, breathing world that we see. Of course, on the right, we see the typical 3D shops that I've talked about in the past. I think they did a really good job here, especially in a world that's so massive. You hear this all the time. Oh, you can go to that mountain if you can see it, that kind of stuff. And once again, in Watchdogs, it's the same way. Watchdogs is a fairly massive world. It's about GTA 4 size. That's the overall idea. That's pretty much the general consensus of it. So that's a fairly sizable world. But that's spread across some really amazing urban blight, as well as really high class and high income areas. I'm going to blow this up. Just see what happens. So let's watch for a second and see how people react. Now, one thing I noticed about this in Watchdogs when I was first playing this for the review, oh man, what was that, a year ago, is the fact that the characters spread information on panic to one another, but they don't do it to the large amount that we've seen in other past titles. In many titles, if something bad happens, an explosion like that, the entire world seems to just go into absolute chaos with people falling over each other. Indeed, even Syndicate had this issue, and Syndicate came out after Watchdogs. In Watchdogs, however, and it might be because of their focus on the conspiracy and being watched, they may have toned that down, but it is fairly toned down. Let's listen to this. Oh, hang on. I'm going to turn subtitles on, where? Oh, of course, audio. Just in case. Now, I'm not quite sure subtitles work for sides.
Remember when we went out to that club? You were so wasted. You wet yourself. I laughed so hard, I was crying. What a mess you were.
Yeah, so see, that's the problem I have with Watchdogs, covering the audio a little bit, the side audio. I find that the side audio it's honestly fairly generic. In fact, many times it's amateurish like that. And I was really surprised. It still does something to add a little bit of the ambiance, and not all of it is poor. In fact, some of the urban blight areas where things are just downtrodden and bad people are talking about having no jobs and stuff like that, that does a fairly good job. But those two characters, that voice didn't fit that character, number one, at all. And number two, what they were saying, I mean, it was just really bad writing or really bad scripting, and that does occur. I guess it's just one of those things, that pops up and happens.
Necessary?
Now, I don't know if anybody knows. Let's talk a little bit about the tech here for a second. We'll talk in specifics about the engine. Now, this is called the Disrupt game engine. The Disrupt game engine was originally created, I'm not quite sure if everybody knows this, for a racing game. A lot of people were wondering if they were going to make a sequel to Driver. There was some question out there of exactly what they were going to do. But this was originally for a unknown, untitled racing game, and at some point, Ubisoft decided, you know what, that's not working out quite well. However, one thing I do have to say in regards to how this game in particular handles driving is the fact that, once again, they don't panic as much, and their driving lines are fairly solid. Now, it's not perfect, none of these games ever will be, but I think that it's interesting that using that racing engine and then turning it into a game like this may have benefited them in some ways. Now, one thing that really saddens me, and I know it shouldn't, is the lack of your reflection on this. Obviously, this is nothing more than that. It's a completely fake reflection that they've done. There is no reflection of you here. It's just a reflection of a city beside you to your left, but it really does hinder the impact of the game world when you don't show up in some of those. Now, I caused this because I wanted to show you guys. So you've got a lot of the cars stopping. One of the things that you don't notice in this game that you may have noticed in GTA, all of the GTAs, in fact, many open world games, there's very little panic when it comes to the other cars. They put on their brakes. This guy here, I love, what an ad there. That's such a cool immersion ad when he takes a picture. I mean, I know it's sad, I know it's terrible. Oh, shit. This is Karak reporting from downtown Chicago. Sorry about that, guys. I wasn't actually meaning to kill a bunch of people. But again, very little panic as things are on fire. I do like that fact. Now, hopefully at some point we may see some emergency responders. Emergency responders are this little thing that I absolutely love in GTA 5. How they show up and some of the weird oddities that happen. Oh, got a little close to the fire. Some of the weird oddities that happen there. But that looks fairly good too, graphically, you know, and we'll talk a little bit more about the graphics in a second. But again, this is about the immersion of the world. Now, am I hearing sirens yet? Excuse me, lady. Do the slow motion Chuck Norris walk. Aha, there we go. Okay. So from one of these corners, we have the fire department. Let's see how they respond. Normally, I would say 75% of the time they respond quite well, but there's occasional times where shit just goes wrong. Let's see which one this is. Okay. What's going on? Oh man, Dennis Leary from Rescue Me is driving that fire truck. What is he doing? Okay, so I said about 75% of the time things seem to appear correct here. We apparently are at the 25% Dennis Leary driving the fire truck moment here. What is he doing? It's like we said. Now I think I hear another one. Maybe somebody else will come save these people. I wanted to show you guys this, but he's got it. What in the hell is going on? Oh, I keep waiting to see. Somebody else is coming. See if he works past this car maybe and backs up. Sometimes that'll happen where they have a line that they want to go to, and you know, I love the shadowing while we talk about. Okay, so maybe he'll turn around here. Oh, just ruined that car. And or we're gonna do a U-turn here, or not. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, well that part didn't work out so well. So we do have a little bit of an immersion breaking here. The graphics look amazing right now, but nobody's being saved. Okay, so, and I don't hear them returning. Well, sorry about that, people. Hopefully you get saved. One of the things I really like, you know, you have the elevated train here going across the top, and I think that's really cool. Especially, you notice that almost in all of those areas, the buildings beside it are fairly run down, almost as if they're not worth as much because of that sound and noise pollution. I think that's really, really cool. Very cool artistic ad there. And again, about the size of the game, we do know, as I said, it's about GTA 4 size. I feel that they did a fairly good job of putting all aspects of, I guess, a city in here. You know, the one thing that I did notice, and this is probably a bit of trivia for those people who haven't played it, there are no children in the game aside from yours, your children that are in the game. That I found very strange, and I was not quite sure why. I'm assuming it may have to do with something like Skyrim where they wouldn't allow you to kill kids, But while you see civilians of all kinds doing everything, the only kids you will actually see are the two that Aiden, the main character, actually has. And I think that again, probably points to the fact that they didn't want a child murder simulator going on. Like, you know, I don't know if you guys were aware, but Fable, when they were originally making, I think it was Fable 3, one of the playtesters had shown a pile of children that they had slaughtered, and the developers were like, yeah, this is in poor taste, we won't do this. Now, it is in poor taste, but in the end, I'm not 100% sure why they would remove that. I think that just adds another layer of immersion. The youngest you're going to get, of course, is that teen playing soccer. That's it. You won't get any actual children. The occasional beggar, though, you do get. Now, graphically, there's a lot going on here. So I'm running in a typical 1080p, 1920 by 1080, and I've got a bunch of the graphics capabilities set on. One of the things that really saddens me is the fact that because of the bullshot trailer that they sent out, it was very difficult for many people to just look at the game and identify it. Sorry, I wanted to cause another little incident here. A lot of people are going to look at this game and we're never going to see it for what it was and what it offered. And I get that. I don't blame gamers for it, obviously. It was even difficult for myself to do that because of what they offered. But when it comes down to it, there is a good deal of lighting, a good deal of shader use here that I think artistically draws the eye towards a much more realistic area than, you know, maybe, I would say maybe even GTA 5, unless GTA 5 is using one of the reshaders on PC. There's just a really cool look. I mean, that car behind me, that van, taxi, really looks amazing when you consider it. Now, one of the problems with this title, or I always found a problem with this title, is ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is, of course, contact shadows. When one item, like, let's say a mailbox here, is sitting on the ground, that contact shadow between the two. It's still done fairly well here, but it's nowhere near as strong as I think it needs to be. And so, once again, in this title, a lot like LA Noire and various other titles I've talked about, you do get what appears to be and what looks to be a train set style, a model train set style building sometimes, where a building just looks plopped down because there isn't actually any shadow there. It does happen. Now, texture-wise, I actually feel that the game is done really well. I mean, ground textures, building textures, all this stuff. I'm going to actually cross through here so I can get to the railroad station. And you guys are going to see me run a little bit more, I think, in this title. One of the problems with this game is the joystick has all the sensitivity of all of my ex-girlfriends. You literally breathe on it and you're running. And one of the problems is when I'm playing with the gamepad, the joystick, whatever you want to call it, when I'm playing with that, it's a lot more comfortable to play with than the keyboard and mouse, but the keyboard and mouse at least allows you to toggle that run, and it won't seem to toggle when I'm using the gamepad, but you will see me run a little bit more. There isn't a lot of animation switching between his slightly somewhat lackadaisical walk, where he looks like the world could just explode around him and he wouldn't give a shit, to his fairly quick jog. And so you'll probably see me messing up a couple times. It happened in the actual game review as well, where I was having an issue. See that right there? It just looks odd. I love this lighting, sun-baked lighting coming off the ground there. There's a lot of different reflection systems going on as well, which I think are done really, really well. This just looks really cool. Very cool sunset moment. See, something like that. You don't see the entire world freak out, and I'm just really amazed by the AI in this. It is fairly realistic. Now, I'm not saying that in real life people wouldn't all freak out. They might, but for the most part, when something like that goes up, people have seen that before, especially in a city, so it's not that crazy. Should I blow this steam pipe? Wait, let's wait for this part. Now, something like that I would think would cause more people, and there we go. Okay, so you see... Of course, if you played the actual game, you can do that everywhere. You can just really create such incredible anarchy. I love the fact, unlike LA Noire, unlike a lot of games, I think GTA 5 is definitely probably the best at this, but I would say Watchdogs is fairly close. No two places look alike. And I'm really surprised. I mean, as I'm walking here, no two places have looked anywhere near like any other two places. I think that's just so cool. Coming here under this little underpass, such a fantastic look to everything. Now, one of the things that they were going to concentrate on is, of course, the the belief of surveillance in this game world. All of the game worlds, almost every open world game has some kind of feel to it, if you understand what I mean. You know, in Skyrim, it's all about fantasy action. There's something every 3 feet in Skyrim. It's the perfect game for an ADD person like myself who just absolutely wants something to happen every 3 seconds, otherwise they lose focus. When it comes to this game, it's all about surveillance, and it's very cool because you see that, you know, the cameras on the streets, and even the strange overabundance of television sets and stuff like that that are just molded onto the side of buildings. There's this very cool, heavy-handed feel to the surveillance. Let's see how they treat this. Lower it. I like this. The NPC trust system, quite low. Look at that. They're like, I don't think so. Now, as you guys have noticed as I've been walking, we've got a true day-night system here. Of course, it's not at 8 hours or anything close to that. Sorry, lady. But it's a pretty good day-night cycle. Not too fast, not too slow. A little bit of rain coming down here. One of the things that I had an issue with in the game is the fact that a lot of the rain just didn't look that good. And you'll notice on the PC, there's actually quite a few mods that are trying to adjust the rain. I love the fact, though, that Ubisoft went and they understood that even underneath, like this elevated train, you need to have detail. All these wire conduits, everything. There's such a lived-in feel here. Now, you can't go into every building, which I think in the future games we're going to start seeing that kind of stuff, but I love to be able to just walk in here. This is so cool. People playing chess, you can join in if somebody's not playing. Got the music playing. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you. I don't know if you guys are aware. If you've done something wrong and bad news about you is currently playing on the radio or TV, any of the shop owners can enter a kind of silent alarm and the cops will come if they see you and if your face is up on the TV, and I thought that was a really cool gameplay ad there. I love that. Take a sip, drink it all right there, and then move on. Now you see we're definitely getting later at night. You can see that glow of those lights. The great part about this, again, as I said, you can go anywhere here. Now, we're looking at the rain. It does have a crisscross pattern, which I think is cool. Most of the games that do rain actually just go straight down. This has at least 4 distinct layers of rain. Actually, let's go down and get on a boat and look at some of the shaders and water. One of the things that I'm really blown away with is how well the shaders were done in this game. And the shaders, of course, there's different things that they do. We're talking in particular about the water shaders here and the interaction between light and surface. One of the things that really surprised me about Watchdogs is not only at the highest setting on the PC does the water reflect the lights and all that stuff, it actually reflects things like ambient occlusion as well. Now, one problem with that is that it actually is fairly heavy hitting when it comes to FPS, but look at that. That really, really looks good. I would say probably second best water ever, maybe first. You know, it's hard because the water's just so nasty. It's, you know, piss and poop all mixed together in a little rivulet that people have to ride these boats across. You have a lot of games with really good water effects. You know, you've got the Far Cry games, of course, and then you have the GTA 5 game, which I think really did an excellent job with some of the water. But the difference is here, you almost never see that blue water. You see mostly dirty, drecky water, stuff that you would absolutely know you get Ebola and dysentery the moment you touch. Again, here you can see the rain. There's something about the rain, that crisscross that they do, that just makes me cold. They do a really good job with the environmentals here. They do have rain occlusion. Rain occlusion is, of course, if you walk under a model, the rain doesn't continue to fall. Surprisingly enough, you would be blown away to really, if you pay attention to a lot of games, you'd be blown away to notice that many games don't have that, and rain continues regardless. The only way it really goes away is if you load another cell or you go into a building, but if you go under a deck or an awning, that rain will usually continue falling right on you. It'll just go right through. It doesn't happen here, and I think that's great. Look at that lighting. I think a game like this and a game like GTA 5 really make you sit down and wonder about something, and that something is, what are we going to see with the next titles? You know, GTA 5 and Watchdogs both do things to such a sublime level that at times it's very difficult for us to ascertain what they're going to be able to do with that next step. Is it just going to be better graphics but with the same amount of interactivity? And I think that's one of the really unique questions that we all have as gamers that we're going to see answered at Watch Dogs 2 and of course, whatever Rockstar decides to do, unless it's another table tennis game. The plain and simple fact is, we're all going to have to look at this and identify what we want to see in our future games, and developers do the same things. They have to identify as well. With this larger amount of memory, you know, many times it's easy to up the graphics, but with this large amount of memory that these new systems allow, you know, are we going to start to see the entry of buildings being a major component of the games, and what can you do within that? What gameplay does that really add? You know, you get that complaint a lot of times, and this game only allows you to enter a very select number of buildings, but you get that complaint, oh, you can't enter every building. Well, you know what, in the end, what really matters is, what does that add to the gameplay? That's what a developer wants to know. Better graphics they cause an immersion level, but does entering a building really cause more immersion? Or would it be something like interactivity with these people on the streets? You know, one of the things Ubisoft did is they made sure that every single character you scan in this game, no one ever has the same bio, okay? So that's already one little bit of interactivity that's just so amazing and so blown out. But it's going to be really interesting to see what Watchdogs 2 or what GTA 6 or whatever a new Saints Row does, if the rumor's true and they're going to reboot that series. What will we see? What will this new technology allow? Because Watch Dogs was built with the idea of old technologies, and it was built, you know, with the idea of, hey, let's push more graphics. Well, okay, that's great, but the new consoles, especially with the Jaguar CPUs, aren't necessarily outfitted to do some of the new graphics that maybe a PC would. Will we be seeing different things? Will we see the PC lead the way and the consoles just getting fairly poor console ports? It's completely possible, and of course it makes no sense to do a backwards port from the console to the PC and not do any changes, which we've seen years in the past. Only now are we starting to finally see the PC get its fair due. So it's going to be really interesting. It's something that I personally want. I don't feel like entering buildings is incredibly interesting. I do feel the people on the streets are. I think Watch Dogs, as well as GTA 5, makes that interactivity viable and makes something there gameplay-wise possible. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but as the rain started, all of the characters react in real time to that, pulling out umbrellas, covering their hands over their heads and stuff like that. One of the things, though, that once again, like LA Noire, you may hear sound effects for, but it never happens, and that's civilians never get into or out of cars. It's always hilarious in that way when you really think about it. They never have that interactivity with items around them, and I've always been surprised that GTAs have done that since, you know, day one, but many of the newer games, they don't do that, and I'm not quite sure why. I'm not quite sure if there's a difficulty there, you know, separating those two types of gameplay state for that civilian NPC, because it is difficult, of course. You take a civilian NPC that's in a job system where maybe they're going to get a drink, then they're going to walk around the block for 2 minutes, and then they're going to go and do something else. It may be difficult to put them in a car and add them to the car thread and have them do specific things in a vehicle. Maybe that's true. I'm not quite sure, but it is weird to see that separation here. You never see civilians getting into or out of vehicles. Now, of course, what you see here is me just looking at all these different characters. There are some hilarious in-jokes here. Some dirty ones, some risque ones, some very un-PC jokes. If you watch some of them, there's stuff about pedophiles, there's stuff about, you know, peeping toms, all of this crazy stuff. It's actually very cool. For example, you might see somebody that says, you know, he is a gambler and he may have $0 in his income, or maybe has a bunch. There's always some little in-joke. Not always, but most of the time there's some little in-joke about the profile of the character. And I find that really cool. It's just that one little, oh, there's registered sex offender, line cook, right? Like there's something about that, I mean, obviously that's not true that every sex offender has to be a line cook, but even in movies, half of the time that's what the person's doing, is they're a sex offender who the only job they could get is, you know, under the radar working at somebody's cafe. Frequent online purchases, collateral appraiser. Now, another thing, unfortunately we don't see this now, maybe we'll see it later, is that all the civilians, including the playing, you know, soccer and football, there's many other things they do, including, I've seen fishing, there's been yoga, there's been magic tricks, there's all kinds of stuff that they end up doing alongside the road, and I think that's very cool. Hopefully here, as the day and night cycle continues, maybe we'll jump into daytime, maybe it'll be sunny, and we'll see some people outside doing stuff. I just love the rain effect on the ground. Everything has such an awesome wet sheen to it. Performs in community theater. Experimental dental implants. There's so many great things. Actually, what's this? The Merlot? Is that how it's pronounced? That's actually, I believe that's actually a famous hotel, now that I think about it. Advocate for gay rights. Light duty cleaner. Single parent. Yeah, it's just so amazing. Sometimes you can spend a good amount of time zooming in and looking. And once again, as I'm heading to this train track real quick, you just never see anything repeated. Locations, buildings, storefronts, everything has a cool, fresh, unique feel to it. Now this is awesome. Look at this Blade Runner moment. The number, amount, and placement of debris here, let me go into the action cam here, is just phenomenal. It looks cool. Debris on all different sides, overhanging stairwells, emergency exits. Everything about this area looks so great. And you can't tell me at times that Watchdogs didn't, in some ways, at least environmentally, equal what everybody wanted. There is...
This guy fast.
Ooh, crime probability. You know, I usually don't mess with these guys. I'll probably just, let's just run by. Of course, you can stop crimes and stuff like that, but I'm not super interested in that right now. Let me see here. Make sure that I'm heading to a train track of some kind. As you can see, we started up by the water, still walking. Just did that bridge. Huge, huge area, really big. One of the things I really love is if you almost get hit by a car, the animation you use is so great. You double palm out, like almost like you're ready to slam the hood of the person hitting you. Very cool. Now there's also a number of shaders, speaking about graphics just for a second again, there's a number of shaders that handle different things, like especially the water on jackets, illumination of all of the different light casters and stuff like that. And I think that you can turn it up and down on the PC. I would say on the consoles it's probably about medium to low settings. It's difficult to really tell. I wasn't impressed too much with most of what was going on with the consoles, while the PC version I thought was, was fairly good, even though there are a lot of settings that tank the frame rate here on the PC version. But in the end, there's enough there that almost anybody with a PC can dial it in to get a good frame rate. Look at that. Such an amazing use. You have almost the right number of civilians. You have just the right number of vehicles at night. Now, I'm going to go on the record here and state that I'm actually fairly unhappy with the lightning, the flash of the lightning. Something about it just simply looks like they colored the sky a little bit brighter, but without the actual true accurate colors. I love that reflection of the blue on the street corner as well. All the reflections of the different street signs are color accurate, which is really cool. Additionally, there's shaders that handle things like the water on his jacket, or when he gets wet, goes underwater, gets wet, and stuff like that you see that are done really, really well. There's a very high level of detail to this. And I love the sign to the left. There's almost a they live kind of feel. And you sometimes wonder if the developers of this game did watch John Carpenter's They Live, because that black and white delivery on the side of a building of, eat, drink, consume, that kind of stuff is really cool. It's not so in your face in this title as it was in John Carpenter's They Live movie, but at the same time it does make you wonder. Now I'm going to come on this side because that train's going the wrong way. Now, unfortunately, I've never seen anybody actually get on and off a train. Same thing. So I was saying that cars, people don't get off and on. Trains don't either. Now, here's one of the things that absolutely, this is going to sound so small, but to me, really added to the game. During missions, you cannot use quick travel on the trains, okay? So if you have a mission, you cannot use quick travel. But here's the thing. You can still get on the train. You just can't use quick travel. So there's this very cool feeling of getting on the train. You can't use quick travel and having to actually ride the train. Well, while you're riding the train, one of the first things you realize and notice is, because there is no quick travel, the entire world continues to be simulated around you. Now, a lot of people wouldn't be that surprised by it, or just don't think that's that cool. But start looking out the windows and watching what's going on, and you see the people walking, the cars hitting one another, all of the stuff that happens normally. It's just a very cool ad. There's no cheat there. I think a lot of gamers, including myself, are always expecting to cheat. And you know, these videos are about seeing how the environment stacks up against what they offered. And there isn't any moment where you're looking at it going, oh, whatever. You know, instead, they kept it going. They kept that simulation occurring, and see those cars and stuff like that. There's something so absolutely phenomenal about this. One of the things I want to make sure people understand is, you know, I rated this game and I liked it. There were some things I didn't, but I liked it overall. If you get a chance, especially if you have a PC now, there's enough mods and enough power in PCs. If you get a chance and you want to check this game out, I highly suggest you do. First of all, the story's good enough to get you through it, but the world state and environment is actually quite enjoyable, disregarding, of course, the fact that they pretty much lied about what they were going to offer originally. But when it comes down to it, gameplay-wise, very, very worth it. Now, to take the good with the bad, one bad part, you don't see a lot of interactions on the subways or on the trains when you're on them. You don't see a lot of characters riding with you and saying anything. They ride. You'll see them on the actual train, but they almost never interact. Even when there's 2 or 3 of them sitting next to each other, there might be a conversation, but there's not as much movement. Now, that might be because they're locking them down. They don't want them doing anything. They don't want them causing any kind of corruption or a game bug. But let's be honest, a little bit, that sort of sucks. Now, I just picked up a crime detected, for example, as I was looking out the window. So that is not a crime that's happening on the train. That was the simulation of real time of what's going on. I love, you know, this view here where you can see down a block and you can see that the world continually being simulated. So great. Now we're just gonna ride the train for a little bit. Looks like I got, man, you can see right there just how big the game world is. Not only walking, but traveling. Again, that begs the question, what are we going to see? What kind of interactivity? Here you have interactivity like some of the ordinary civilians can actually get the player into trouble, do different things. I'm going to fast travel here so you guys don't have to wait. There's a lot of stuff going on, but where does that activity lead? That's the real question, I think. Watchdogs definitely shows a step in the right direction with the profiles and different things that you can see, but I'm really interested in seeing the future. Now, one thing I love is look around. All of the vehicles, the paint jobs are slightly altered now. We're in a lower rent area. We're in a lower income location. Everything from the buildings being more down and out, the textures being slightly beat up and weathered. One thing I will try to show you in a second is something I noticed when I was playing the game during the original review. There's a damage texture that is massively overused as both a rust texture, that texture right there actually, on the UPS truck. It's easily noticeable because for some reason it looks like a bunch of continents or an island chain. You're going to see that repeated on a lot of vehicles in various ways. It's almost like one of the texture artists got bored one day and was like, I'm just taking a brush and I'm going to use that brush for everything. So that, yeah, see that damage right there to that UPS vehicle? It's sad they couldn't write UPS on the side because that is such a iconic look. You know, and the way it looks right there, so perfect. I wish it had been able to say UPS on there to add a little bit more of that realism. But again, so we're in a lower income area now. You're going to see a change in overall colors, looks, textures on characters' clothes, as well as their clothes. Now you start seeing, like, look at that. You start seeing damage to clothes. You start seeing like the cuffs of their pants being wet and dirty. Stuff you did not see and will not see except for very, very rarely in the nicer parts of town. Let's look here. Let's, we'll try to jump to almost all the islands. There we go. Guy taking a picture of me.
My bad, bro.
We'll go through here. Now, there is something very lived in, very real about this setup. Of course, ignoring the fire and the burn barrel. But one of the things I have to just really give accolades to Ubisoft and this engine is the foliage. There's almost no drawing, no matter how far away it is. If you're in a park, if you're in a small forested area, if you're at one of the gardens with the fountains, there is almost no draw in. And I was really surprised by that because obviously it's not a major thing that they needed to make sure they hit well in this game, but there is almost none. It's perfect. It looks real. The grass, there's rarely a texture of grass without grass there. You might see a texture of moss, green across rock, the propagation of moss into grass, that kind of thing, where that wet feeds grass and allows grass to grow. You will see that. But you almost never see the grass texture, almost like Halo, where you saw grass textures and then little splits of grass. Here, it's just the grass is there. And though you see some couple lines there, like grass is being put down in brushes, overall, they still did a fairly good job of randomizing that. One thing you're going to notice as we continue through, this is the industrial area, right? This is the dirty jobs micro moments. And so you're going to see more people in hard hats and stuff like that. But one of the things that blows me away is the use of things like pipes, wire conduits, and the transmission of something from something else. It's actually not done in a lot of games. So, for example, if you go to a place where there's a grain silo, there's, elevators that carry the grain into the grain silo. There's things here where the rock has the rock elevator that goes into the rock crusher. It's strange, but you see those kind of things powered by power outlets and power conduits as well. That is an attention to detail that is actually more than many other games. Many games would not have that. Even in GTA 5, there are moments where things are just sort of plopped down. Here in Watchdogs, I was actually really surprised by that continuation of power and energy, electrical, the thought process that one thing needs to move to another thing, which means to move to another thing to get a process flow complete in a work area. That is actually mimicked here. And it's quite surprising. Additionally, you're going to see things like these power cables that will actually go correctly with the correct size transformers to different locations in the game world. That's actually really pretty damn sweet when you consider it. Something that really shocked me, I think, the first time I saw it. I love this guy cleaning the bus stop over here. That's so cool. Dirty jobs, but someone's got to do it. And then this crusty old road that leads down to the little water here. There's a very cool feel to this. It's obviously not used that much. I think I might just jump across. Of course, looking at that reflection shader in the water, very well done. Not perfect, but you can see buildings, you can see all, and you do see, if you guys notice me moving, the shadow changes a little bit. There is an error there. That error is mimicked in almost all games. It just has to do with the way the game updates. Additionally, if I get a chance, I'll try to show you guys something where you can actually tell that those updates are done at a different speed. We've talked about that in past games where frame rate for, let's say, the Halo enemies in Halo 5 were updated at 30 frames a second, though the game was running at 60, and you noticed a difference. Sometimes people will update shaders. Even ambient occlusion can be updated at a different speed. In fact, some versions of ambient occlusion updated at a different speed, like a half speed, or a different resolution. One of the things we'll notice here is lights reflected in water. They appear to be at about 30 frames per second, or at about half of your overall frame rate is. They seem to reflect that because as you move around, you can see them flicker in and out like they're only being drawn every other frame. Get a run across here. Once again, nailing it with the group discussions, characters.
I'm gonna do it. Hey, finally! I can't keep admiring this.
That's awesome. And then this right here. By the way, no lie, that tread's actually correct. That tread is actually correct for a heavy wear, heavy duty vehicle. And that surprised me when I first saw that tread. I was like, that looks very, very similar to the treads that we used in my old job. And it actually is adequate. It's not perfect, but it is a good approximation.
Can you hurry, please? I'm not feeling... Oh, God.
Whoa, what? Okay, so not quite sure what's going on here. Either this is somebody coming down off heroin and not getting their up when they need. That was awesome. Again, here we see really good attention to detail with different supplies being in areas that need supplies. It's funny, you guys may think that that's such minutia. Why would I even mention it? There are so many games where you have a work area or a construction area where that's not included. Now, one thing I don't like, there's no mud spread across. We saw it in Battlefront, Star Wars, where there was mud in areas. Of course, that was a solid texture, it was not dynamic. There's a little bit of water stain here, but I really am surprised that they didn't put mud over the top of this, just to show the in and out. What's this? Oh, you see that? Watch the wind blow this. You'll see it. That is awesome. Now, you know you're a nerd like myself when you can watch a cup roll across a curb and see how it speeds up when it goes on the downhill and bumps up against that because of the wind. Of course, I'm sure most of you guys know, but Ubisoft went out of their way to model wind throughout this game world, and it is accurate. If Aiden's jacket is being blown from front to back and I turn, it'll be blown from side to side correctly, adequately, completely directional
We had
correct.
a long talk. We were completely honest with each other. It was good. I think we worked
That's
it out.
great.
I
Yeah.
can't believe I was so worked up.
Yeah, there's something-
Calm down.
This is
take time
really
to
great
listen.
news.
She's really happy that he got his relationship figured out.
Sure.
Yeah, there's something that I just don't really like about the ambient audio discussions that a lot of these characters have. That just didn't appear to be tonally accurate. It almost appeared to be two different discussions that they melded together. And one, of course, is a character overreacting by a great amount to what the other character is saying. It's like me saying I got a sandwich and somebody being like, that's the greatest news ever. No, not really. I'm wondering if I should cross across this. Getting hit by a car in the middle of this would probably put a damper on it because it would probably reload me quite a ways back. Let me... Running. All right. Now here's where we see some of where the shortcuts are taken, these rocks. Let me jump across here. You do see stuff like this where Ubisoft believes, obviously maybe from testers using heat maps, whatever, that things are not going to be seen as often, and you have some fairly low resolution textures here, very low resolution actually, last gen almost, as well as some really poor models. But then you get into the actual grass area and everything sort of recreates and goes back to the way it should be. That's something to be expected, but it shows just how far we've come. Jog right across here. Once again, so intricate on the lattice work here of the metal for that road, the railroad that goes above you. Just blown away by that. Sorry, I hit the focus button. Whoa, don't... Switching between console and keyboard can do that too. Alright, so let's walk across here. Now, when it comes to vehicles, we know that there's over 100 modeled vehicles. It was hard to find data, so I counted them during the review. It's hard to find exact data of how many modeled vehicles there are, and they certainly aren't all modeled after real cars. Many of them are slightly adjusted, obviously because they didn't get the branding, because I don't think you see like a Chevy vehicle in here, a real Chevy, but you see those vehicles that are somewhat approximated. Very well done. However, it was difficult to really tell how many there were. Now, people are freaking out for no reason here. That might be a bug. Because they're looking at me and I didn't do anything. Or, well, a while ago I pulled out that gun, so maybe they're reacting delayed to that. That's the first time I've seen a true reaction. Now, there's a Bronco, I think, on the left. We'll go across here. Another thing I really love, the wind. All of that wind going through the trees looks so great. Hopefully we can find some little natural areas, especially where my plan is to end this. I think even more so than GTA 5. Oh, there's definitely a bug. Look at that texture bug right there. Or not, it's just an error of some kind. They got a straight line there. That's odd. Still, really looks good though. Here's some dudes. What's up, guys? I love this. Looks so cool. So many different animations and gaits and body styles in Watchdogs. Don't like the fire.
Up, pal.
What?
Get out of my face.
Hey, fuck you, man. I'm just here sharing some... Oh, yeah. Let's see.
Whoa, little close there.
Okay, suck it. One of the things I'm totally fine with normally, but I'm not really happy with while the game shows it in particular areas is the fire effects. They really lack 3D in a great amount. Ooh, that rock right there is floating in space. You can see that rock right there that I'm standing on. It's floating in space. You can only notice it when you walk around in a circle there. Yeah, that's odd. There. Here we come down into this more industrial section. Look at that overburdened power line right there on the left. Those things are just running so much power. It reminds me of like some town in India where they've got like 8,000 wires coming off of a single one, just ready for an explosion and fire. Now this is great. Really, the dregs. Looks like downtown Detroit, man. Look at that. So this is not construction, though that's a construction trailer. This is obviously a demolition, a destroying of this building, not a building up of it. One thing about music that I think is really interesting here is, you know, everywhere you go, in the shops, all of that kind of stuff, there's actual music throughout all of that. And one of the things I thought was really cool is you can steal it, of course, with your little telephone. You can music sneak or whatever it's called. And you can steal people's music, and I thought that was very awesome. Also, when you go into buildings, any of the music there, you can also steal theirs as well. I thought that was cool.
My cousin finally got a job interview. He's been out of work for more than a year. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I like that. Talking about getting out of work and stuff like that. Just that changeover of voice. Make sure I'm heading in the right direction. I think throughout this entire area, they did a really good job modeling urban blight. Now, a lot of this, of course, and this, you know, the falling out, the low income areas, a lot of this, you just got to, you know, sort of take your hat off to these guys. They decided to go and to some of the bad places of different towns and take these pictures and identify what an area looks like. They did a really good job. This is excellent. Just this desiccated city block.
Man, how long can it keep up?
I think I've lost hope.
Yeah, see, again, none of the discussions, though, even the one about the job that I liked, none of the discussions really, they don't feel real. Like, how long can I hold on to hope? That really does feel very staged. It doesn't feel like people talking about stuff. Additionally, I noticed there isn't a lot of slang. There isn't a lot of curses used. And, I mean, let's be honest, that is sort of what happens even on any street, let alone, you know, when people are down and out and stuff like that. I was really surprised that you don't hear a lot of that at all. It might be a rating thing where they want a certain rating, but... And I love this. Once again, the demolition trailers, the red demolition explosive carriage, all of that stuff is correct. It's actually adequate. It's in place. Again, supply equaling demand in locations, something you do not see in other titles. Guy playing.
Chess player? Need a player?
Of course, me able to steal the music here as well. I think that's very cool. Okay, I think it's time for another subway. Looks like there's one right here. Now, graphically, one of the things that was really, telling about this title, and may end up indicating why the console versions had so many problems. It's a texture just absolute destroyer. When you would get this game on high settings, it would absolutely eat up all of the texture memory in your graphics card. Various websites did some testing where they would run it on Uber in high settings. Uber, of course, being the setting that was supposedly the closest to the E3 showing. It wasn't identical, but many modders found that you could make it look very close. And strangely enough, there wasn't a huge drop in the overall appearance of the game, or the overall performance, but the appearance shot up. One of the problems, though, is the texture, the VRAM, the amount of texture, RAM, and memory used was incredible for this title. And, you know, maybe that points to the reason why the consoles just never really caught up on this game, never really looked that good. The PS4, of course, looks better than the Xbox One by a good amount, especially due to its use of a more advanced, I guess, level of ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is so important. Even here on Uber, I'm not incredibly happy with the way it looks. There's not as much as I'd like. I mean, The PS4, of course, has a much better style of ambient occlusion here than the Xbox One does. So if you had to choose between those two, unless there's been a patch, I think the PS4 is the version to go with. Now, so we did the fast travel, jetted down here so that I can show you another area. This, of course, is, you know, it's difficult to even know what they're mimicking here because it appears at first to be sort of a low rent area, but this is one of the places where I actually traveled, did a lot of driving in the review. It's this awesome mix of nice and sort of low rent all in the same area, and I love that. Except you notice a lot of safety precautions. These gates, get used to them. Everything is gated, so you have a really nice area right next to a pretty down and out area, but what happens is they put gates everywhere, and that's really cool because that's actually mimicked. In cities near me, very large cities, that kind of stuff is actually done, where if somebody does buy a really nice place in sort of a less than nice area, they'll just gate the damn thing off with security gates, and you'll see a lot of security patrol vehicles. Now, in many ways, just purely because of what we're seeing here, a lot of this reminds me of LA Noire. You see these nicer, older brownstone kind of houses. You see these, you know, the gated communities. Except here, an incredible jump in the overall amount of geometric data. There is just all kinds of stuff. Oh, there was my little animation for getting hit. There's all kinds of stuff. The hedges on the left, the slight vertical incline here, really cool mixes and adds to the gameplay feel to make it feel like a unique place. I mean, really think about it. Think about where we started from to where we are now, right? It's so amazing. This is one of those games that if you had a chance to rent, you know, rent it and just walk it. Well, we saw this kind of stuff, and look, there we go. What didn't happen in LA Noire, again, don't think I'm comparing these titles directly. I'm just saying it didn't happen there, but it's happening here. People in the backyard. Oh, speaking another language, something you don't see in a lot of games as well. Just so amazing looking. Like, just going for a stroll, right? This is one of those games. What I was saying was, if you get a chance to rent it, or you can find it cheap, and you like these kind of games, you like exploring open world games, I would highly suggest you pick it up. There's, like I said, an interesting story. People still, from what I understand, play multiplayer, and there is a very fun amount of exploration you can do if you like to do this and just watch the world around you. I'm calling 911. Also, in some areas, you see more of the performance vehicles. Some more of the Honda Civics with the flames on the side and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. You see more of those. What's up? Cigars, cigarettes. Wind. Look at that. All the shadows done correctly. Such a great world. I think we're almost done here. Due to the fast travel, I would say we easily have taken, you know, more than an hour or two off of the travel time, just so everybody knows. I mean, at a jog, maybe not, but this is awesome. That is such a great look. Cultured garden. Oh, and even, what's this guy doing? Weed eater. That's so great. Again, jobs making sense in their general areas and locations. That is so important to keep the gamer believing. Also, that light, how it bounces off stuff. One thing you will notice is shadow propagation is correct. So you see my shadow lengthen there in front of me. That is really well done. And fairly accurate. So there's a lot of ways that you can do some of this stuff, but you can take shortcuts. Can I jump up there? No. That you can take shortcuts so you can get a close approximation. Well, what's going on here is a lot of the design elements, a lot of the graphics, the shaders are really accurate, and it surprises me that they chose to do it that way, but they did, and it ends up making the game look better and better for it. Oh.
Watch where you're going.
So this should be a park area. I think this would be good to end it. Again, noticing the foliage, completely different shading and textures. One of the things you see, no repeat textures whatsoever here. All of the grass completely different, whites, greens, browns. One of the things that you know, people think of grass as green. It's almost rarely ever green all by itself. There's all these other shades and textures.
Oh, please don't. Go do your thing.
I like how they switched to English.
Man, just take my money and go.
Only an English student pull out a freaking grenade launcher. That was awesome. Oh, hey, what's up? That was great, though. They're like speaking completely fluid, natural, native, a different language, and then they switched to English. They're like, holy shit. Now, here I wasn't so happy. I noticed this happened in the review as well. There's some issues here with the lighting where it just sort of ends, but this will be a good place maybe where I can show you. Yeah, see when I'm moving, the lighting switches? That's because it's being drawn probably every other frame. So that movement there that you see where those lights come and go and disappear, that's a way to still get the effect, but get it with, I guess I would say, less CPU, GPU resources. I don't actually have a problem with that because the only time you're going to notice it is when you're swinging like I am, where you're swinging the viewpoint left to right. I actually think it's fairly intelligent use. You guys know me long enough, and if you watch the videos, I'm actually fairly interested when somebody finds a way to cheat and still look good. Fisherman here, no line, just fishing with air and hope. Buddy, that's not gonna work. Let's go up across here. Some impromptu singer. That was cool. You could hear her singing in the background. This is so great. There's an organic feel to everything, from the movement of the people to the actual, as I said before, the supply and demand of different areas. If anything, I would say the one thing I would like is for tree trunks to have roots, or tree trunks to have different impact points on the ground. They all just pretty much slam right into the ground. If you've ever been to a park, you know, a tree trunk many times will have gnarls coming out of the side, bulbs, different areas. I sort of wish they didn't look so planted in, but what a small thing to complain about. So great looking right here. This reminds me, I don't know why, maybe it was in the trailer, but of Alan Wake. Some bits in the Alan Wake original trailer. And now we're here, fairly north in the game world. The rural area. Completely different in all ways, shapes, or form, from the people, the characters, the clothing, the vehicles, the shaders, even the way the roads meander. You know, far less about getting from one place to the other in the quickest way like a city's done, but instead that meandering mountainside road. Over here to the... Let's see if they have Lay's. Chips. But they're all the Lay's colors. That's great. Oh, hey, you know what? You know what, my friends? Let's look at some action for a second. Time to go. Boom. Love the explosions and fire here. We'll end this, as all things should be ended, with a grenade launcher. You know, one thing I'm surprised at is a lot of games can't move from that very detailed environment into full-on action. GTA 5, I think, does it spectacularly well, where you can be going as normal and then have a falling down moment. I actually was really surprised that Watchdogs did this well. The action and stuff like that. Of course, at some point, the cops will be called if they haven't been called yet. And I just really thought they did a really good job. The graphics, the special effects, even the aiming was done really well. I'm trying to hit him. Damn it, didn't get him. Somebody's on their way.
Squad, we got a green light on CTOS search. Scanning for suspect now.
Time for the shotgun. I love this gun. Smoke effects are actually done really well. There's some issues with on the cars themselves where the different layers, the different alpha layers don't really mesh up very well. But other than that, pretty good job on the smoke. Different areas of smoke coming out. And then that cop spotlight. Graphically, that's so great. You can see the, you know, how those leaves blow in the wind. Give myself up. It's not gonna happen, Kappa. You're never gonna get me, Kappa. Oh, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Shamboozle! Let's see where we respawn. But I love that switch that the game is able to do. It's able to really work well as a exploratory game, the actual single-player game, and then also just, you know, well, that. I don't know why, but I love this grenade launcher. Look at that. That is awesome. Friend, I gotta walk away. That is so great. Action moment.
I think I need you to send someone. Can you repeat?
Oh!
Hello?
Can you repeat? Hello, dude, she's gone. That was awesome.
911, please state your emergency. Emergency? Some guy is shooting here. What? I don't know. Please.
Try to hit her. Nope, she got him. And fairly low frame rate drops here, despite just the sheer amount of anarchy going on. This shotgun should just be called the Life Ender. It is absolutely scary when that shotgun goes off multiple times. That is gnarly. Looking for the, can't see the, oh, there's a helicopter. Shoot, I wanted to get it, but.
Copy that. A high-powered patrol unit is en route to the suspect.
Not gonna happen, buddy. I was trying to blow up this cop car. Just took them all out, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think I got enough bullets. Oh, slow motion death roll. So that's it for me, guys. I love doing these videos. I hope you enjoyed this walking the walk for Watchdogs. As always, if you liked the video, hit like. If you disliked it, hit dislike. And let's end with some rain patter. Peace out.